All right, everybody, welcome to Leverage. This is Leverage Session 2. So part 2, part of the Sales Mastery Series and part of our FYR organization, the FYR Partners community. And today we're going to be talking about choosing your team structure and choosing your compensation model, and then preparing to make the hire. So this we're getting into in the first session. We talked about creating that picture of what you want to build, right? What kind of business you want to have, what's important to you, where do you want to spend your time, where do you want to spend your money, what's the outcome that you're looking for, ultimately, not only what will fund the life that you want and the business that you want, but what will put you in the position to be doing the work that you enjoy doing and gives you the type of freedom that you want, and that sort of thing. So really looking at that long term, how to build that, how to structure it, what are all of the important components, and then understanding behavior, how your own behavior plays into what you're best suited to do, and then how to leverage, right? It's time has proven that it's best to really double down on your strengths and then leverage your weaknesses, and then which things can be leveraged, should be leveraged, and should not be leveraged as a leader. And then if you are on a team role, on the team, what is that team role? What does that look like as far as, what do you bring to the team with your behavior, skill sets, background, and everything else? So now we're going to look at team structure, and that's got to go the right way here. All right. Or look at team structure and how to plan the right structure, and then who are going to be the people on your team as you build out that team. Because having a team obviously implies that you have people, right? That you have people on your team, that it's not just yourself. So over time, working with a lot of top teams, I have I've seen lots of different types and styles, different teams that have come out and looked at what the pros and cons, right? What each one of those team leaders, what they were struggling with, what worked really well for them, and finding out why they built their team the way that they did. And some of them were by accident, and some of them were very purposeful about it. But in the end, they did what they did to suit what their needs were and what the outcome that they were looking for. So I created these quadrants right here, this little chart. And so you've got four quadrants laid out. And then if you look on the left side there, right, then that is broken down by job type. Let's go look at this like a graph, as if you're going from the bottom towards the top. So at the bottom starts as salesperson. And that implies that you're doing all of the work working with the clients, right? You are showing houses and writing contracts and going on listing appointments and getting the listing sold, and everything that happens during that process. You are the salesperson on the buy side and on the sell side. And then as you move up on this side, then you start to add people leverage to your team. You start to hire people. You might have an admin, you might have a transaction coordinator, you might have a runner, you might have a buyer's agent, you might end up with a listing specialist or anything else like that, right? So all of the showing assistant, all of the other roles that you can add to your team as you go through. And if you are directly responsible for the work that they're doing and making sure that they are equipped and prepared and handling the issues and training and that sort of thing, then you are a manager, right? You are managing those people. If somebody gets sick and they can't show up to an open house, you're the one juggling and trying to figure this stuff out. And then as you go further up, that implies that you get into that leader position. And if you are the leader is the visionary. They're setting the vision and they are driving things forward, and they're checking for the final result and outcome. But it also implies that you have someone who is now in that management role for you. So you've leveraged even the management, and maybe you have a lead buyer's assistant, a lead buyer's agent who manages all of your buyer's agents for you, and that sort of thing, right? So you may have multiple managers on your team filling different roles, freeing you up to be driving the vision of your company and your business. Okay, so that's on the left-hand side. If you go along the bottom axis, that's the lead source. Where's your business coming from? If your business is all through your SOI, it's all referrals through past clients and friends and family and everything else like that, And so your business is mostly coming to you. Maybe it's coming to you because of the great relationships that you have. Maybe it's coming to you because of the great business you've already been providing, whether it's in real estate or in other businesses, and you're known and liked and trusted, and they're sending you business, and that's great. Okay. The more you have to be active about generating business, and there's a limit to that, as far as the number of leads that will just come into you passively. And so if you want to go beyond what that number is, then you have to start adding active activities. So you get into prospecting. Right now you're reaching out. I'm not just waiting for business to come to me. I'm going and getting the business. And I may be getting it from people I know in my sphere. I may be getting it from my community. I may be getting it through social media. I may be getting it through people I don't know and other activities. Right. And so now I'm adding in, still adding in active work that I'm doing to go get more business, to accelerate and to add to the number of closings that I have. And then you go all the way out to the end, and now you're leveraging systems. Okay. And so as you start to leverage systems, this would be technology, using different CRMs, and maybe it's even Zillow or something like that, right? There maybe you may be buying leads. But there's all different ways to leverage different types of lead generation systems that drive business to you. And all of those things have someone or something else predominantly working for you. You may have some general setup and concept and that sort of thing, some babysitting to it. However, for the most part, that is going to be happening once you get it set up. It's happening, and then the leads are being provided to you, typically in exchange for money. So that's going out to the right side there. So if you think of this, all of these quadrants in terms of, you start all the way down at the bottom center, right? If you start all the way down at the bottom towards salesperson and SOI referrals, okay, typically that's where you're going to retain the most of the revenue that's created, right? Because you're not splitting with anyone, you're not paying any other positions or any roles for the work that they've done. You're doing it, and so you're keeping most of the money. Other than the split with your brokerage, the rest is going to you. And if the business is coming through your SOI and referrals from people you know, right, that your SOI and everything else, then you're not spending any money to get that business. It's being brought to you, and you're not paying for it. So you're not splitting the money with anyone else except for your brokerage, unless you're at 100%, and then you are you're not paying to get that business. As you move down, up or out either axis, right, you're going to be taking less and less of a percentage of the revenue that's generated per each transaction. Okay, so if you move up on the left axis there, the more you hire other people, if they're a staff person, then you're paying them a salary, potentially a bonus. If they're agents involved in the transaction, then they're getting a portion of the commission. If they're the buyer's agent and they bring it, they're getting most of the commission. Listing specialist getting most of the commission, right? So you're decreasing your percentage retained. And when you get to the point of being a leader, now you're paying your managers. So not only are they getting a split of transactions they might do, but now they're maybe getting an override on the other people, reducing what you keep, or maybe they're even getting paid some kind of other, structure bonus, whatever it is. And so again, further reducing the amount per transaction that you get. Same for the bottom. As you move from left to right along the lead source, okay, if you have any kind of tools that you need to do prospecting, right? You start to buy CRMs, you start all of the things that you pay for, technology tools, other resources, when you do marketing or anything like that, where you're going out there and trying to, anything that you do, typically you're going to have some kind of expenditure on it. And then those systems for the full leverage out there have a higher expense on them as well. Okay, so the farther you go, the more you're spending per lead to get that in there. And if you're doing both, then you've decreased by far, typically, how much you're making per transaction. But the magic is when you get into that upper top quadrant in the fourth quadrant, where there's the highest amount of freedom, right? Because the less you are doing on the actual transaction and the less management responsibility you have, and the more you are leveraged through other systems and people that are lead generating for you, the less time you have to put in for the money you make, which allows you to close a lot more sales, right? So now you're doing a math problem, and you're looking at, okay, how many, if I reduce how much I'd make per transaction, how many transactions would I have to close to equal or exceed the income that I'm making when I'm doing all the work myself, right? And that's that gas and clutch. So we're going to talk about that and what that looks like as we go through. So hopefully you guys have your books downloaded and printed out that you can go through. And so we're gonna go through, and right now I am looking at page 31 is where this quadrant is. And we're going to go ahead and flip to page 32. And on page 32, it has this graph, and there's a couple of questions on there. So I want you to go through and let's talk through these, and let's think about how this impacts you. Okay. We looked at what factors caused the dollars retained and freedom to decrease and increase, right? Dollars retained, we went through that. And as far as the freedom, right, the less that you have to do on each transaction, the less responsibility you have for the transaction starting and going all the way through and getting to closing, then the more time you have to go either go out and get more business or spend on other things. All right, so look at the chart. Okay, consider where you are right now. Think about where you are in these quadrants. Which quadrant are you in? And where do you want to be? Where are you hoping to be? And there's no wrong answer, right? Every one of these quadrants has, they all have pros and cons, right? And so some people absolutely love being the salesperson. I love working with my clients. I hope that I'm working with clients until I am old and gray, right? I want to keep working with clients. I hope that, I can always, I love taking listings. I love driving people around. I love working with first-time home buyers. Whatever it is, some people are very, very passionate about that. And that is not something that they want to leverage. But maybe they don't love the paperwork. Maybe they don't love the details. Maybe they don't love the bookkeeping. Maybe they don't love all the data entry and that kind of stuff. Maybe they're not a huge fan of lead generation, or maybe they really don't know how to create good ads, or they're not big on social media, et cetera, right? Maybe there are other things that they're not quite sure. Those might be things that get leveraged, but not the working with clients part. So on something like that, they would go from quadrant 1 over to quadrant 2 as they leveraged more and more of those responsibilities from the lead generation standpoint. They might start to lift up somewhat towards the top of 1 and 2 as they hire some other people to leverage out the administrative tasks. So they get into a management role. So they're managing their staff and the folks that help keep their business going for them, but they stay still down also with that salesperson role as well. They don't leverage the actual working with clients. And that is a great business model. And there are a lot of people that have that business model and are very successful and extremely happy. It's a great place to be. You still get the magic of working with clients. You get the magic of helping them find the right home, getting that listing, coming to your sellers and saying, good news, we have an incredible offer. You guys are going to love this. Getting to the closing table, high five, celebration, whatever it is, and going through that. And that's a cool thing that we get to do in this industry. And so that's a great quadrant to be in for some folks. Right? Some people say, hey, you know what? I'm kind of done doing all the stuff and having to run around, and I really want to leverage working with buyers. Love buyers, but it's a lot of time and it's a lot of running around. And right now, especially, it's super tough. And I would love to have other people handling all that for me. Some people love doing the lead generation. I don't want to leverage that stuff. I'm great at lead generation, whether I'm, great at making phone calls, or I'm great at doing parties, or being in the social mix, or all the relationship capital that I have through the investments I've made in other people over the years and other jobs that I've done, or a spouse or a friend or parents or whatever it is, living in the community forever. Great at technology, great at videos or TikTok or whatever it is. Then, man, I love doing all of that kind of stuff, but I really am not all that interested in working with people. The clients as much now, right? That's not the portion of it that it was great for a while, just not what I want to do right now. So you may be moving farther and farther up top, but then shifting around with some of the other things that you do. You're getting tons of SOI leads. So you may lift up into quadrant 3, and you may leverage more and more the responsibilities of working with clients during the sales process, but the business is still all coming through your relationships, your SOI, your past clients, the business that you've built. Okay, so you're going to want to be in quadrant 3. So lots of different places where you can land. So, think about, where is the quadrant that gives you the greatest opportunity for total profit? Total profit. Which one has the opportunity? Obviously, none of it's guaranteed, and nothing works unless you do, right? But where's your opportunity for total profit? That's going to be in quadrant 4. So although it is typically the least amount of per transaction revenue, you have the opportunity to have the most transactions close. There's an unlimited number. There are teams out there with 300 people on them, right? Many of them are operating in multiple markets. So when you have that kind of leverage, if you have 300 people closing sales for you, right now, all of a sudden, even though you may be getting a smaller part of each one of those, the total amount of revenue that you're driving has the opportunity to be unlimited. So your opportunity with the most leverage is to have the largest total net income at the end of the day. If you build your business, you're able to build it much larger on that platform. Okay, so not per transaction. Your largest per transaction is going to be down in the bottom left corner. The largest opportunity for total profit is going to be up in the far top right corner. All right. So what's the worst place to get stuck on this graph? Look at this graph. Think about what may be the most painful place to be over a long period of time. So picture the different roles as you move up and down and you move side to side. Typically, the most painful place to be is smack dab in the middle, right in the crosshairs, right in the crosshairs of this graph. That's typically going to be the most painful place to end up. Now, why do you think that is? Right? If you look at rising in management, okay, that is smack dab in the middle of manager. So you are spending most of your time managing other people. You have less time in the sales process, but you haven't moved on to leverage to the freedom point. And so you've built the team to the maximum point of your involvement. So now if you have several different admin people, maybe you have a marketing person, maybe you have a tech person, you have a couple of runners, you have you have some showing assistants, you have buyer's agents and that kind of stuff. You've leveraged out a lot of those things, and now you're managing everyone's schedules. You're managing all their personal lives and what's happening there. You're also managing, hey, what about making sure that the business has everything it needs, and you're also responsible for the lead generation. Okay, as you move from left to right, you're also right in the middle of prospecting, which means to maintain the level of business that you have coming in right now, it's not what you're getting through SOIs, referrals, past clients, and that kind of stuff is not enough to feed the team that you have, right? And you haven't leveraged, and you maybe don't have the income portion yet, or haven't leveraged yet systems that you might need to purchase and that sort of thing to have leads brought to you. So you are in the heart of prospecting. And that's going to be up to you. And so you're driving the prospecting. So you are putting the responsibility of bringing in the business and feeding the team, so to speak, on your shoulders and going out and getting the business. And you're also managing the people. It's a lot of responsibility directly on you. It can be done for a certain period of time, but this is typically a burnout phase. When you are in that spot, a lot of people give up with the team. They just say, man, I tried it, and as it got big, it got too big. I couldn't handle it. I started cutting different things, and it really just kind of went back to just me doing sales. So don't raise your hand, but think about maybe you've been in that spot before. I've talked to a lot of agents who got to that spot, and it was tough. It was tough, and they weren't sure where to go to get to the other side, whether they go up farther or go out farther. And they just bailed. They just bailed on the team at that point. Some of them just stayed in it, but it's a lot, and it wears on them, and they're looking for freedom. They're trying to find. It's a lot of times that's when people will get into conversation with me as a coach to say, hey, how do I get out of this? This isn't fun anymore, or it's just hard, or it's too much pressure, or I'm not seeing my family, or I don't have quality of life. It's all working, but I'm running around like my hair on fire. So that's the spot that you want to make sure if you get through there. It's like running through an electric fence. When you get across there and you're getting zapped, don't stop. I think it was Winston Churchill who said, when you're going through hell, keep going, right? Don't stop and set up camp. All right. So on page 33 in your manual, there is a description of each quadrant and when you might want to seek out that quadrant. Okay, so you want to read through the material and look and determine which quadrant is best for you and where you want to go, right? So quadrant 1, you have enough business opportunity through your SOI. I get enough leads through my sphere of influence and referrals through past clients and everything else like that coming in to give me all the business that I need. And if it ever is lull, or if it ever, needs to go a little more, I could get a little bit more active in working with my SOI and my past clients and stuff. But I've got enough business and I have enough connections that I can get where I want to go. And I love working with my clients. So I might leverage some of the administrative tasks and that kind of stuff out. It might even be something where you just use a VA to do something like that. You're keeping your management responsibilities down really low, keeping your costs down really low, and you're hanging out with your clients and you're saying, hey, I'm generating enough business that I can personally handle, and working with my clients, and I love doing that, and that's where I want to be. There's your quadrant one. In quadrant two, you're going to still leverage just the basic administrative tasks. You're going to free up a little bit of time so you can handle more leads. So you're going to do, maybe bring in some other, whether it's an admin or a VA or something like that. You're starting to leverage some of those. And then you're maximizing your efficiencies in your business through some prospecting opportunities. You're starting to do some things actively to drive more business from people that maybe you don't know, through social media, looser connections, not necessarily tight SOI or past clients. And you start to extend your personal brand and your marketing, and possibly start to build in other leveraged opportunities to generate more business. So, hey, I can handle more business. I've got some systems built into my business, and I'm going to increase the number of leads that are coming in above and beyond just my SOI. And I'm going to do the basic leverage from a people standpoint to be able to handle the increase in business as needed. Quadrant three, you've got enough business opportunity from your sphere. Okay, so you don't need to go into heavy prospecting every once in a while. You can there's a gas pedal over on the right that you can use once in a while when you need to. But for the most part, you're getting enough business coming in from your sphere, your past clients, and through the business that you already have. You want to continue to focus in on your SOI, continue on keeping the number of leads coming through your SOI very strong. And then you're going to start to leverage first with your administrative tasks, right? And leverage as many of those admin tasks as you can. And then you start leveraging some of the activities directly with your clients over time. And so you hand off more and more of the opportunities with the transactional opportunities with clients over time as you leverage with people. But first, you're going to leverage the administrative tasks. And then 4 is going to be a blend, right, of both 3 and 2. Right, you're going to be leveraging the people tasks over time, and you're also going to be leveraging the lead generation over time, and get into a more systematized business, and then the people doing the stuff for you, right? And opens up a lot of opportunities. And that's where a lot of top producers, you see them getting into, whether they're doing coaching or whether they're doing other portions of their business. People that start, we have top agents who have started their own mortgage company, title company, et cetera, to go alongside of their business as it operates. Other things that they might get into, some of them get into doing more personal investing, the cash flow that they're generating, and they invest in, they've got Airbnbs, they're doing multifamilies, they're doing fix and flips, and that sort of thing. And some of them just enjoy the extra time to actually hang out with their family. So there's that too. All right, so let's look at a couple of possibilities on what you can, if I can get my screen to change, there we go, what the team structure might look like in each one of these quadrants. Okay, so in quadrant 1 is typically going to be a lead agent and an administrative assistant. And again, this could be a VA. So that's quadrant 1, is very, very basic from the standpoint of personnel. Very, very little overall leverage, all right, in that structure. As you go into quadrant 2, okay, that's moving to the right on the lower axis. You've added to the administrative assistant an inside sales agent, right? So you've got an ISA, this person that is generating leads and scheduling appointments, right? They may be utilizing some structures that you already have in place, the current business that you have, listings that you may have, prospecting and other pieces like that. They're generating business and generating sales for you. And then also adding in a transaction coordinator. And again, it's further freeing up your time to focus on closing more sales, right? So that is quadrant 2. Quadrant 3 adds in a few additional personnel, right? So quadrant 3 brings you back over to the top left quadrant. And you can adding in things like a showing assistant and then a buyer's specialist. And then also on the listing side, as your business continues to grow, you add in a listing assistant and a listing specialist, right? And so they start to handle all of the transactional opportunities working directly with your clients, in addition to having the administrative assistant and a transaction coordinator. As your business continues to grow, then you start looking at quadrant 4, right? And this is where you become more akin to a CEO, and you develop into that CEO role, where now you run the business, but you have people managing the people, right? Now you have a lead agent that steps in and starts to play the role that you were playing and helping to drive the business forward, working with the administrative team, working with the sales teams, right? And so now you've got an ISA, you have multiple showing assistants, et cetera, right? So you start to create leverage for the people on your team as well, providing more services, because you're great salespeople. You want them out there closing more deals. And so you're providing additional leverage for them. So originally it was leverage for you, and it still is, but now you're starting to provide leverage for your salespeople and your business, so that they have the opportunity to go out and close more sales. So this is a general structure of what to look at with the various quadrants and what these are. And, of course, inside each one of those, there's a different path. But again, typically you want to look at, maintaining the dollar productive activities for yourself as much as possible, and starting to leverage the other activities that are kind of the necessary 80%, if you will, right? You have your 80%, your 20%, and the 80% only gets you 20% of your results, right? You got to do the 20%, and that's getting the business and working with the clients and closing the deals. But all the other stuff has to happen. So leveraging all of those components first and staying in that sweet spot of driving your business forward and taking care of your clients at the highest possible level is where you want to stay until you get to the point where you're leveraging that. So these are the different quadrants on pages 36 and 37. And we're going to get into the positions in a little bit more detail, but there is a kind of a definition or description of each one of the roles on a real estate sales team on pages 36 and 37. So that's something you're going to want to go through. If you're not familiar, obviously most of the positions everyone's very familiar with. We've all played that, worn all of those hats at some point in our careers. But some of them are, a little bit different. And they go, okay, what's the difference between, what exactly does an ISA do? What's the difference between a listing assistant versus a listing agent, and what exactly do you leverage and that sort of stuff. So there's some detail in here that might be helpful to you. All right. So hopefully, as you're going through this, you're considering what kind of team model is where you are right now and where you want to go, at least in the short term. You may have this path. So as you look at the course of the next year to 3 years, right? What is your path? Where do you want to be? What kind of team? And then you're going to look at how would I hire this? How would I build out this team? And how do I structure it? Right. But one of the other things that a lot of people don't know what to do is how to structure their compensation model. So we start talking about this on page 38 in the manual. And this is something where, it's hard to watch sometimes, but I've seen a lot of people build a team and structure their business and have really no idea how to compensate fairly the people on the team, whether that's staff people or whether it's especially other agents, right? How should this work? I've seen some where the lead agent was extremely generous to the point of hurting their own income. And I've seen some that were very stingy and really did not create a very fair opportunity, and maybe took advantage of agents who were in a position where they needed the help and needed the leads. But what they were getting paid wasn't really commensurate with the amount of work that they were doing, and everywhere in between. And it's not always purposeful. A lot of times it's just a matter of not being sure how to do it. There haven't been too many manuals out there on how to structure compensation. So let's talk about it. And I think the hardest part about it is that there really isn't a one size fits all. You can read some books out there and they'll tell you it should be this and it should be that and everything else. But the team offerings vary so greatly based on the lead agent that it's really better to have a guideline on this. And there are two things that guide how what your comp structure is. The first one is what you offer. right? What do you offer? What's the value that you're bringing to the table? Why would people want to be on your team? Why would they want to work with you? And I think agents struggle with that the most, which tends to have them overpay the agents on their team, right? They tend to be overly generous because they're not really sure what their value proposition is and how to structure what they do and what they offer, or just to share that value proposition, which is interesting because that's what we do, right? You go talk to clients, you go on a listing appointment and you're sending out your information about why they should list with you. You're talking about your value proposition all the time. So this is just a similar conversation, but for some reason it tends to trip agents up. And the other thing is, what are your costs? What does it cost to operate your business? And, again, it tends to be fairly typical in our industry that, maybe with independent contractors as a whole, right, we don't love the details. And so maybe we're not tracking our expenses as well as we could. We don't really know exactly what our costs are, right? When it comes down, it feels great. You close a sale and you get a check and you're like, woo, I just made this money, right? And no actual concept of what it cost me to make that money. Right. And so how much am I actually netting when I get that check? If I get a check for $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, whatever it is, how much am I actually getting? How much money has already gone out the window? How much money has already been committed out of that check that I'm receiving? And that's the big question to be able to track. So I look at the client acquisition cost, the CAC, right? Client acquisition cost. That's your lead generation, prospecting, and everything else. All the money that you spend to get a client, right? So every client that you end up working with that closes a sale, how much did it cost you? Look at all the costs that you have out there to generate any business. And then you break that down into the number of closings you have, and that's your client acquisition cost, right? So you have to look at that and say, hey, I put all this out there, and I end up getting 10 sales out of all the money that I spent. Okay, well then each client is 1/10 of the overall expenditure from an acquisition standpoint. So all your prospecting, marketing, and everything else, branding, and everything else that you do out there to get clients. It's not all of your expenses, but it's all of your expenses to get a client. Now, once you have a client, you have the expenses to take them through the transaction and close the sale, right? So those are all the rest of your expenses. That may be administrative staff, VA costs, or anything else like that. And so those are your total costs. So that's your CPS, that's your cost per sale. The cost per sale takes into account all of the money that you spend, all of your expenses for your business to operate your expenses. And if you're, whatever portion of your car is utilized for your business, and gas, and, all of those different things, any CRMs, the monthly cost to your brokerage, all of those things are all part of your cost per sale. Okay, so you have to go through there. Anything you're putting on your credit card for work, subscriptions you may have, your dues that you pay every year, right? Your total expenses that you have. Okay, and then you break that down to your cost per sale. Because if you had 10 clients, then the total amount of money that you spend, if you weren't a realtor and you had some other job that you got a salary and everything else like that, so you would no longer do any of these things, right? Any of those things that you do because you're a realtor and you operate a sales business, those are your costs. You divide that up by 10 if you had 10 closed sales, right? Because it's 1/10 of that is what it cost to get that client and close that sale, right? And to make that portion of the income that you're making. So that is your cost per sale. So what a lot of people, if they're not tracking their expenses properly and they're not breaking it down by the number of sales that they closed and everything else to understand what their cost per sale is, then again, you get paid at the closing table and you have no idea what you've spent to get that check. And so you don't know. So how could you leverage it, right? If you have someone on your team, a buyer's agent, and they go out and close a sale and they get paid and then you get your portion, how much of that should you get? So I've broken down some examples on here and I'll show you on the screen here. Okay. If you assume a $350,000 average sales price with a 3% commission, right? And then an 80-20 lead agent split, right? Then if you follow the math on the screen, right, it's a 10,500 average GCI, gross commission income per sale, right? And then the agent is keeping 80%, the buyer's agent's keeping 80%, right? And this one has a 70-30 split for this example. So it's $8,400, 30%. Sorry, you've got a 80-20 split with the company, and then a 70-30 split with the team, right? So the lead agent is retaining $2,520. Well, if their cost per sale is $2,800, right? Actually, every time their buyer's agent closes a sale, it's costing them $280. Okay, so just let that sink in for 1 second. It feels like, and I have talked to a ton of people who say, I say, what's your comp structure? And they break it down and they show me. And I said, well, what's your average sales price? So on average, you're getting blank dollars from your buyer's agent every time they close a sale. And I said, yeah. And I said, great. What's your cost per sale? Deer in the headlights, they have no idea, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with them and broken down, gone through all of their expenses and got to the point where we could figure out their cost per sale. And they realized that the amount that they were getting from each closed sale that someone on their team was closing, the amount the business cost them was greater than what they were getting. And so they're actually bleeding to death, right? Every time someone on their team closed a sale, it felt like they were getting money. But every time someone on their team closed a sale, it was costing them money. They were paying for the people on their team to have the privilege of being in business. And so that was not why they set out to do that, right? It's one thing to leverage, but the reason you leverage is you could turn away business, right? I have more business than I can handle. My schedule is so full, I can only do what I can do. But why would I not just refer it out to someone else? Well, I'd like to make the money. We would like to serve the clients. So I'm going to leverage this and bring some other people in. And a lot of people say, man, if I had, 2, 3, 5 buyer's agents closing deals and handling all the stuff that's coming in, we'd be making a ton of extra money. And then they figure that out and they say, hey, if it's $2,800, I'm sorry, if it's $2,500, per sale they bring in, and I have, and they average 10 sales a year, so $25,000. And if I had 5 people doing that, I'm making an extra $125,000 and I don't have to do the work. This is all business coming in anyway that I can't handle. It's an extra $125K in my pocket. Okay. But what they're not realizing is all of the things they're doing to generate that business is costing them maybe $150,000. Right. And so if they could just stop doing those things and make more money than they're making right now. They could stop doing those extra activities, get rid of their entire sales team, and have less management responsibility, more time on their calendar, and more money in their pocket. And so I'm not suggesting don't build a team. I'm just suggesting do it the right way and have an understanding of your expenses and your structure and build that in. And then when you say, well, listen, here's my cost per sale, here's my cost structure. And if I'm going to add more people, and if I'm depending on my level of responsibility to feed them with leads, how much money will it cost me to generate more leads, to do more marketing, whatever it is, right? Am I going to have to hire more support team to be able to support these extra people closing sales? Or I need more transaction coordinators, et cetera, right? How do my expenses change as I build my team? How does that impact that, right? And then I need to understand, based on all of that and our average sales price, what would make it worthwhile for me to take on the extra responsibility of hiring these people, managing these people, leading these people, building everything out, and adding all of these other things and being responsible for that? How much income per sale, how much total income would make it worthwhile, right? So how much do I need to make off of each transaction? And then how many additional transactions would need to take place in order for it to be worthwhile to do all of those things and add all of that extra work and responsibility? You need to take that into account on the front end before you get started. And if you're already underway, then that's something that you really need to start digging into and having understanding for. If you're a solo agent, this is no less important. If you don't have a team yet, then this is the best time to learn it, right? But because your own mistakes at least are only costing you, it's not the mistakes of 10 other people on your team, right? But it's really important to really dial in what your client acquisition cost is, what your cost per sale is, what your average gross commission income, right? That GCI from each transaction. How does that all stack up? How are you doing from a profitability standpoint right now? what changes do you need to make to financially shore up your business? And, if you're starting out, then, there is a truth to you need to make money or spend money to make money, but you want to do it and hold every single dollar that you spend accountable to the return that it creates for you. Make sure you're not wasting any dollars, right? Don't, hey, I tried this for 30 days and it didn't work. So I tried that for 30 days and it didn't work. And I tried that for 30 days, right? You need to give things time to work, but you need to make sure that if, hey, I'm spending money on this lead generation tool and I haven't used it in 90 days, and I probably, if I'm really being honest with myself, I'm not going to use it, cut it, right? Get rid of it. Stop spending the money, protect your costs. If you have less sales than you need right now to be where you want to be financially, you need to cut your expenses to the bone on anything that is extra, anything that's a nicety to have, but isn't, required for you to grow your business and get it to the next level. Cut all those expenses, double down on the action and activity to go get business, close sales, increase your income, and then you can start to leverage the cool, fun, extra leverage tools that are out there to get more business. And again, anything that you're not using and it's just pinging on your credit card or whatever every month, get rid of it. All right. So here's another thing to consider. On page 39, we talk about what you are worth. And again, this is it's an interesting, I don't know if it's a psychological phenomena, but, understanding your own worth and your value and what you bring to the table, and then developing, and this is good to go through, even just talking to your clients, and understanding what's the value you bring to the transaction and to, their goals and outcome that they want, right? Understanding how to define those things and then how to talk about them to other people is a really, really important skill to develop if you haven't already. And then understanding it for your teams. So there are lots of different ways that you can add value, right? So as a team lead, you can add value in several ways. One obviously could be leads. Most agents out there right now, the market is slower, right now. And so, in many markets, and if not being slower, it's more challenging. Right? Things still may be moving really quickly, but there's less stuff to move. And the rates are a little bit higher. So, sellers are a little bit, the deal, what's happening out in the marketplace right now. It's a more challenging marketplace where you have to be more creative. You can sell a lot of houses. You just have to really double down on it and have some understanding. So right now, leads are harder to come by because the inventory is lower. And so agents more than ever are looking to be on a team. And if you ask them why they're, agents who never, wanted to be on a team before, if you ask them why they want to be on a team, the number one reason they want to be on a team is to get more leads. They're willing to give up a higher percentage of the commission that they're earning to have more leads and to close more deals, so that in hopes that their total outcome is more income, right? 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing, is how a lot of people are feeling right now, which unfortunately leads to some people being taken advantage of. They jump on a team, they get a lead coming through their sphere of influence, but they give half of it away. And that team lead didn't really do a whole lot for them. And that's happening out there in the industry. I think people have the best intentions. They're just not structured to be able to provide support. There is no value in it. So you need to be careful if you're looking to get on a team to make sure you really have an understanding of what you get in return for what you're giving up, right? Is it better to just double down and get more leads? And some people should be on a team, and it's a great opportunity. On the right team, there's phenomenal synergy, and you're going to make way more money than you would out on your own, and you're going to have great support and camaraderie and all of those things. So again, the right situation, the right group, the right leader, and the right person to be on that team, it could be a great fit. For the others, going out and driving, building your own business and conquering it and making that happen and keeping the most income is the way to go. So leads. Right. And it's referrals, marketing, purchase leads, and ISA making phone calls off of signs, right? If you have buyer's agents and you have a bunch of listings, then you're feeding leads through all of the buyers that are coming in and looking at those listings. It could be staff support. You could be providing administrative support, data entry, scheduling, making phone calls, setting up appointments, creating reports, doing marketing, all of the different things that could be done for the agents that take that off their plate. They get it done at a higher level because they get someone with a skill set and expertise and templates and everything else. And it also is the time leverage where they don't have to do those things and they can spend their time working with the leads that come in. Coaching and leading, transactional coaching through the transaction on what to do so that deals don't go sour and go south. How do we keep them in play? How do we get it to the closing table? How do we work with the other agent on the other side? How do we work with the other client on the other side? How do we work with our own client? How do we have the right conversations? What are the scripts? How do we keep our clients happy and all that kind of stuff, right? All of those things that through your experience, teaching skills and techniques, emotional support, right? It's tough out there. And sometimes we need to, lift people up and dust them off and pat them on the butt and send them on their way. And this is, also a role that you play as a leader. Goal setting, helping them understand what they should be looking to do, and then guiding them through that process, and encouraging them and holding them accountable to getting the results that they want. And then the shadowing opportunity for a newer agent to shadow an experienced agent and to learn. And the great thing about these things is these are skills that they'll carry with them, whether they stay on your team for the long term or that they grow into being, on their own at some point. And so, that's a huge value that a lot of people overlook, that just says, hey, I'm going to give you life skills and business skills and everything else. I'm going to make this time in your life more enjoyable because there's going to be less stress and you're going to make more money. And you're also going to learn a whole bunch of stuff that will serve you in this industry, other industries, and in your life, and going on through your career for the rest of your life through the stuff that you're going to learn here. I'm going to pour into you. And then management, the guidance, orientation coming in, all the systems, the office equipment that you may provide access to, different subscriptions that are there, different tools, technology, all that kind of stuff that they might get through being on your team. So there's a ton of stuff that you can provide that provide value to someone. There are top producing buyer's agents out there that close a ton of deals every year and make a ton of money and are really well known and could easily, from a transactional standpoint, go out on their own at this point. But they don't want to, right? And they don't need to, because they're in a great situation where they say, hey, I love working with a ton of clients. I love working with a ton of buyers. I love the challenge of finding them the right property. I love driving around with them and going through different things, or I love getting that contract accepted and all that kind of stuff. I love all that stuff. I just hate lead generation, or I hate the paperwork. I hate all the other stuff that we have to do, right? And so you provide all of those things for me. All I have to do is, you're going to say, hey, I got another buyer that wants to go buy something. And you're like, awesome, I'm going to go take care of them, right? That's it. That's what I want. And I can do a ton of those. And you hand me as many leads as I can handle, and I'm going to go run them down, and we're going to take great care of them. We're going to have fun, right? And so that's a great situation for a lot of folks if you provide the right environment for them. So again, it's all in meeting the needs of the people on your team, providing a great opportunity for them to succeed, and then just making sure that the split is equitable, and that it covers all of your costs to give all of that support and make it worthwhile for you to take on the extra effort and time to be able to grow that business. So there's a sliding scale, as you can see on the slide here, on the amount of commissions that you retain. And the commissions that you retain, right, all depend on the services that you offer, the leads that you provide, the tools you provide, and the time that you save them to go make money. The better opportunity they have to make money on your team, the more that you can keep as a portion of the transaction. So the more you provide in these different areas, and it don't stop at leads, right? All of the other components go into this, but you need to communicate this with people either who are already on your team, or people that, as you add your team, you need to have this information readily available so that they understand, listen, when you come onto our team, this is what you're going to get. This is what we do for you. This is the environment you come in. You're going to come into an environment to give you the best shot at being successful possible, right? And they want to be on your team, and they're willing to pay more for it. So there are great team structures out there with great team leaders where, the agents coming on the team, they're getting 20%, 30% of the commission when they close a sale, right? And I know the numbers are all over the place. But that all makes sense when it comes down to the value that's being provided, right? And so they're happy to do so because they know they're closing more deals and making more money. All right. So there's an example on here, and it's on the slide, and this is also in your book. If I get to the right page. And this is on page 41 in your manual. This is just an example, but this is to give you an idea of the potential for a sliding scale. I will tell you, when it comes to incentive programs, it is simpler is better, right? salespeople are typically motivated by instant gratification, right? So pay quickly, not something like overtime and all that kind of stuff. And also for something that's very easy to understand. The compensation structure needs to be easy, where they know when I do this, I get this. And if I get to this level, I get this, right? And that basic structure. So the whole, like, if it's my deal, your lead, my lead, this, and 12 different ways that they make money, and they don't really understand it, it's just not that motivating typically, and it's hard to track. Right. And that's usually when I see a breakdown in teams, it's because of misunderstandings on exactly how things work, and someone got overpaid or underpaid in their mind, and there was not the same common understanding of exactly how it worked. So simpler is definitely better. I'll also mention that more often than not, it costs you as a team lead the same amount of money to manage through and provide support for a transaction, regardless of where the lead source is. Now, if you're buying Zillow leads and you're doing other stuff like that, and you're paying for all kinds of other things at an ISA, right, and they bring in their own lead, it's true that you did not pay all of those things for this particular lead. But if they're still relying on that lead source to pay their bills and to make the money that they want to make, they don't have a set number of personal leads that they're bringing in that allows you to dial back the number of leads you pay for, number of zip codes that you have, or the number of dials an ISA is making, or anything else like that. You still have to commit the same amount of expense to keep them going in their business. And then the other deals that come in are great, it's supplemental, right? But it's not allowing you to decrease your expenses unless they really take off on their own self-gen deals, and it allows you to reduce your expenses. So my argument would be that, self-generated deals, if you're still providing all the administrative support, again, all dependent on what you offer. But if you're providing a bunch of other tools and transaction coordinator, administrative support, and all of those other components, regardless of the lead, and if you still have to go out and spend money to generate business for them, and you're still providing all the same coaching and guidance and support and backup in case something goes wrong, and everything else like that, and liability, responsibility, then I wouldn't change the structure of the compensation based on lead source. I would base it based on production. The more business they do. So if you add in a bunch of self-gen leads, that just gets you to a better split faster. Do more business, close more sales. I'm going to give you a bunch of leads. Go out and close those leads. If you do a great job closing those leads, you're going to sell more houses, and you're going to get to a better split for yourself. If you throw in a bunch of self-generated deals as well, bam, you're going to get there even faster. Okay. So if you look at this example, first 10 sales, next 10 sales, next 10 sales, right? And that gets this buyer specialist, if they're fully leveraged, right? And they're getting buyer leads and maybe bringing in a few leads, and they're just work the lead, get the contract, and get it closed. In this, if they're doing 30 sales, they're making almost $140,000 in this example with this average sales price. Okay. This buyer's agent may have come to you prior year, maybe they closed 10 sales. You hire someone, they're experienced, they were closing 10 sales, same average sales price. They were making about $78,000 with those 10 sales before expenses. Okay. That's just after, company split and that kind of stuff off their GCI. $78,000. Take a bunch of expenses out of that, maybe $1,000 a month or something like that. Right. All of a sudden now they're making, $66,000 net income the prior year. If they have enough leads that come through where they're able to close 30 sales instead of 10 sales, right? That's a $60,000 to $70,000 net income increase for them, and takes all the pressure off of having to generate the leads, and gives them a lot more time freedom with all of the leverage activities that are provided for them. So this is a huge bonus for them. And again, looking at the goals and behavior of your team members, and then tying into that for what you're offering. All right. So once you have all of that structure together and you have a feel for where you're going to be, right now you're ready to start thinking about making hires. So we're going to talk about this real briefly. We're going to dig into the hiring process together in the next class. So there's an entire process. We are going to give you all the stuff, right? So in the manual that you already have, there's an index, and it's a pretty big index. That's in there. If you're in the FYR group, these will all be editable documents that you'll have access to, loaded up into our files in the workplace group, right? So in the FYR workplace group, editable documents of all of these things, everything that we're talking about, everything that we're going over is all there for you. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just take it as is. You can edit it and tweak it a bit for yourself. Okay. There's a perfect hire checklist. And this is going to take you through. Remember, we talked about the behavior for the different positions. So you're looking at that behavior, and then you're talking about how important is it for them to have certain behaviors, right? So the first one, if you see on the screen there, it talks about being decisive. That's that D, right? Do you need someone that's really decisive? And so, I would need that to be high. Or I don't want someone who's super decisive. I want someone who's going to ask me what to do. Like, I need to be able to guide them in this position. Certain positions, you don't want them running off and doing stuff without your guidance, right? You want them to be a systems person where you hand them the system and they go operate your system without deciding your system stinks and that they go off script, so to speak. Okay. Or so you want them to be low, or, it doesn't really matter for this role. I don't care if they're decisive or super decisive or not super decisive. What about being a self-starter, having a sense of urgency? How about being social, right? You want to get someone who's really unsocial and hire them as a buyer's agent. I wouldn't recommend it, right? What about someone who's your transaction coordinator? I really don't need them to be super social, right? I don't want them on the phone all the time and on Facebook and everything else. I want them getting the job done. Service minded, et cetera. So all of those things. And that's where you just look through and say, hey, these are the behaviors that I'm looking for in people that I want to represent me with our clients or interacting with team members and that sort of stuff. Right. So going through all of those things in the behavior, and then it goes through this checklist will take you through all of the things to consider. And this is that to make the perfect hire, I want to ask myself a whole bunch of questions about what's important to me for the role that I'm hiring for and think this all through. And this is like creating a missing persons report. Okay. So you think of this perfect hire checklist, you're going to define someone so that when someone comes in front of you, you're going to hold up this piece of paper and see if that's the person you were just describing. If you describe them really clearly on exactly what you're looking for, skill sets, experience levels, behavior, all of that kind of stuff, and then you hold up the sheet, and then you kind of have their resume and experience and everything else like that, bam, you're like, wow, this person's a fit or they're not a fit. I know right away. I don't have to wonder and ask all these questions and all that kind of stuff. So all of those things are all in your perfect hire checklist. Okay. And then there's a summary statement. Okay. That summary statement is going to describe your perfect hire. It's going to describe that person. And this is something that you can share with people when you're looking for this person. Right. So this is something that you're going to say, hey, I am looking for talent for my team. And I'm wondering if, when I give you this description, if anyone comes to mind. And then you give them a very succinct description of what you're looking for. And they might go, oh my gosh, you know who came to mind when you said that is this person. They would be an awesome fit. I'll connect you with them, right? So you want this summary statement. It takes your perfect hire checklist, puts it down into your little elevator speech that you get to share with people as you go find this person. Because, you can use all the job sites and everything else, and you can often find talent on those sites. But, typically the best talent you're going to find is going to come with the personal endorsement of someone you already know, like, and trust. Right? Because they're going to go, I like this person. They know you, they know your business, they know your personality, they know your style, and their support of this individual goes a long way. They say, oh, this person would be great. I know them. They're super responsible. They're super, they love people. They're this and that, whatever. Or I've known what they've done for work, and I've worked with them before. They're really detail oriented, whatever it is that you need. And then they can give you a great reference for someone. So writing that summary statement is a really important next step. And you've already done the kind of the detail work behind it with the perfect hire checklist. All right. And then you have to decide whether you're doing an employment agreement or a team agreement or an independent contractor agreement. And you have to understand the difference between an employee and an independent contractor, and legally what you can do and what you can't do between the two roles, and what type of position fits best for the role that you're hiring for. If you want to give somebody a specific set of responsibilities that you hold them accountable for doing, and there's a time they need to show up, they have hours and all that other kind of stuff, that usually falls legally into the definition of employee. And this is something where, the IRS and, and other government groups can come down on you pretty hard for having the wrong structure. And so you really need to have an understanding for it. In your manual on page 45, there are some links to IRS resources to understand the definitions of what they are. There's a 20-factor test for independent contractors to determine, okay, am I really hiring an independent contractor or an employee? And if you want to go the independent contractor route, what do you need to alter with your agreement in order to have it structured properly? Okay, in your index, I have examples for you of both an independent contractor agreement, an employee agreement, and a team agreement, right? These are 3 separate different documents, and you're often going to fill out 2 of them, right? Independent contractor or employee agreement plus a team agreement. So one's going to be their contract of employment, and the other one is going to be, this is how the team works, and an understanding of all of those things, right? So they're all of those documents. And having worked with a bunch of the top producing agents in the industry, we have gone over their agreements, and I've taken the best of the best. I've also, personally hired and employed thousands of people over the years. And so we've gone through the different employment agreements, and we've had incredible experiences. We've had a few that were less than incredible. And we had a chance to test the language in the contracts to determine the outcome that was going to happen. And so that research and information is included in the templates that we gave you. Again, I always encourage you, have an attorney, have a CPA, give you legal advice and financial advice on all of these things. I'm giving you suggestions. I'm giving you what I've learned from my experience, but I'm not giving you legal advice. So you really want to make sure that you have the right partners, because you're running a business. You're running a business, and you want to have those right partners. But so I've given you access to a bunch of resources, and I've given you a bunch of templates that you can utilize. And then there are some other components that you're going to go through. There's an expectations agreement, and that just makes sure, they say conflict only arises when expectations differ. And that's such a true statement. And so setting off on the right foot and having the right expectations from the beginning will very, very often, number one, sometimes you get down to the expectations and you or they go, ooh, not a right fit. Our expectations don't line up. Great person, just not right fit for this role or for the team or whatever it is for the situation. And that's great to know. And really like, oh, that's what you meant by that. Oh yeah, I don't think that's what I want. Or, wow, that's what you meant by that. That's amazing. And they become a stronger fit when you really understand, like, wow, we are so aligned on all of these things. This is going to be great working together. So how do you get there? Well, you have to ask the right questions. So again, there's a template of all of the questions to ask, taking you through that process when you go through that hiring and a whole lot more. So as we go through the next session, in session 3, we are going to go through the actual, bringing people in, having interviews. What is the process to do a good interview? What should you ask for? How do you gather it? How do you assess it? How do you have the conversations? What do you ask? How do you really determine a fit? How do you look at a resume? You get resumes and you go, okay, great, they sold houses or they did this. I don't know, right? How do you go through that? So there's a way to go through a resume to make sure you get a right fit. There's a way to ask the right questions to uncover a long-term fit opportunity, to uncover the motives and everything else like that. And then there's an onboarding process to ensure success and to guide them through, to make sure that you're helping them achieve their goals, right? You now have a responsibility to help them get where they want to go, in addition to them helping your business get where you want it to go. You have that mutual responsibility to each other. How do you do that? How do you encourage them? How do you hold them accountable in a way that is respectful, professional, and results driven? Right? And how do you go through the process? How do you determine a fit or not a fit over time, and how soon, and everything else? And then how do you keep them engaged and excited and enthusiastic on your team? That's session 3. So looking forward to you guys being there for session 3. Looking forward to meeting with you again. And as always, you can always reach out if you have any questions on this material. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you. Have an awesome week. I'll see you for leverage session 3.